Well, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Steve Rao. I serve on the council in Morrisville, but I'm also a host of Leaders and Legends on Radio Murchie, the Triangle Region's largest South Asian radio station, also aired in Philly and Baltimore and around the country. So we want to thank them for allowing this very special live broadcast of a very special guest. And for those of you visiting on my Facebook page, this is being streamed on my Facebook page and also being shared on multiple sites around the region and state. So we're going to be able to have a wonderful discussion with Chief of Morrisville Police, Patrice Andrews, who's a great leader and a great friend of mine. So Chief, we welcome you to the show, and we want to thank everyone attending today.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Ralph, for having me on today. I know this has been a long time coming, so I'm glad we're finally able to be here together. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we have so much to cover. We got about an hour today, but we've already had a lot of questions come in. And the way this works, folks, is if you have a question, you can send it in chat. You can text it to me, and I've gotten a few texts already. And then it's on the Facebook Live as well. And then after, we're going to share everything. This will also be aired at 4 o'clock on Sunday on Radio Murchie, which is 99.9 FM, 101.9 FM, and 1490 AM. So thank you so much. So much, and we've got a number of people attending. I think Jim Sawyer is going to be attending. Well, thank you for the Black Lives Matters March, and they worked with you hard to pull that off. Thank you so much. So let's talk a little bit about your background. First of all, happy anniversary. 4 years ago, last week, you were sworn in as our police chief. I remember it being a very emotional moment for me to see. I was Mayor Pro Tem then. I remember that day so well. Your mom and dad, your family there. Walk us through a little bit before, just what drove you to law enforcement? Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and what drove you to be in the police force?
Yeah, so I grew up in Chapel Hill. I'm originally from Chapel Hill. My father is from Durham, North Carolina, and my mother is from the foothills, so North Wilkesboro. I spent a lot of my time in Wilkes County and love that place. And but my home, it was really in Chapel Hill, and graduated from high school, and I wanted to be a marine biologist. So this is not what I wanted to be. So I wanted to swim in the ocean. I wanted to study marine life and conservation and all of these really cool things. But I discovered very quickly that I had to be very good at biology and things that I really was not good at. So at that time, I was attending Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, and I really felt the need to come home and be home with my parents, very close to my parents. And so I called them and said, listen, I really want to come home. I don't want to be this far away. And ended up transferring to North Carolina Central University, which is right around the corner in Durham. And what I realized then was that I was actually not really ready for school. And so I was expelled rapidly from North Carolina Central University with probably one of those GPAs, I think. I met someone and decided that class was just an option for me. And, why go to school when you're in love? And so, which is definitely the wrong attitude, but you live and you learn. And so fast forward, I ended up having my daughter at a very early age. Because I'd never finished college, I really had very little options as far as what I needed to do to be successful, right? I had odds and ends, so I worked 9 to 5 jobs, which is fine, and to provide for our daughter, and just really one day realized that was just not where I wanted to be. I was on government subsidy, WIC, food stamps, really relying on the government, and that's that just wasn't. I wanted to do something more. I wanted to provide some stability for Kennedy and our family. And so I ended up opening up the newspaper one day and applying, seeing this Durham Police Department was hiring, and their starting salary was a little over $20,000. They had benefits, and they had all this really great stuff, things that I needed. So ended up applying, was accepted into the police academy. and successfully completed the police academy in Durham, and that's where my law enforcement career started. You know, as I kind of went through, I started my career, I quickly realized that I wanted to do more. So I wanted to have an impact. I wanted to really make a difference. But what I realized was that while as an officer you can make a difference, as someone who sets policy and makes policy and you know changes the culture of the organization, you really do have to advance. In order to do that, I knew that I had to go back to school. And so in 2007, 2 years after having my son, I enrolled full time at North Carolina Central University. And so I remember sitting in class in my uniform as a lieutenant then, and you know, and being in class, going from class to class to class. And eventually I graduated in 2012 with honors from NCCU. So I'm very, very proud. You know, I didn't want my daughter to look at me and say, hey, Mom, you know, you did just fine. I wanted to just show her that, you know, in life, we really do have to, if there's things that you want, you have to be willing to put in the work. And so I did, and I progressed through the Durham Police Department, and went to the FBI National Academy in January of 2016. And that was about the time that I applied to the Morrisville Police Department as their chief in March.
Yeah, you
and
came from Durham. You came from
I
Durham.
did. I came from Durham, and at that time, I was a captain in the Criminal Investigations Division, and so so I supervised or was responsible for about 70 investigators, and in fields of homicide, special victims unit, domestic violence unit, and fraud. And you know, I did that for you know a few years, and I was tired. You know, I was tired of seeing. I went out on nearly every homicide in Durham, and I will tell you that will wear on you to see someone that has, you know, taken their last breath, someone that has died in a violent way, and just wondering, you know, gosh, what happened? You know, what happened in this person's life that they ended up here in this place? And so I had a renewed, my spirit was renewed, right? So I knew that I wanted to do something more. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to connect with the community. But it was very hard when you're really being very reactive to a serious, a larger, more serious issue, right, within our communities. And so I was given an opportunity to come to Morrisville as the chief, and you know, and I'll never ever, words will never be able to describe to you the immense amount of honor that I felt and joy to have been able to really assume this position in our wonderful community of Morrisville, and the trust that was really bestowed upon me to do that. And so I'm forever grateful. And yes, it's been 4 years. It doesn't feel like 4 years, but it has been 4 years. And I will tell you, I have no regrets.
Well, that's fantastic. And I remember, I mean, you're a trailblazer. I mean, the first Black woman to be the chief of police, one of the few in the region and state, and then also the first woman, female in Morrisville. What was that? And we're going to spend most of the remaining hour talking about racial healing and sort of this pandemic and the racial tension and just what our department's doing and other departments. But what did that feel like? I mean, you know, you're just a big moment, right? And your father and mother there. I remember I got emotional seeing you get emotional, and I had to cry before I did this interview because sometimes I get emotional when I do these interviews. Yeah. But you know, what was that feeling like? You took the oath and you just were there, and I just really get welled up in emotion. I just remember that moment so well.
Yeah,
it was a big deal.
As do I. You know, I think that there was a moment where I I wondered, what did I do well in my life to be here? You know, to be in this place at this time. What have I done? You know, I think there is a certain sense of, you know, when I look over at my parents, always wanting to make my parents tremendously proud of me, right? Because both of them are children of the civil rights era. You know, my father was one of the first to integrate the schools in Durham, along with Andrea McKissick,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, and so, you know, and then my mother, you know, growing up in the mountains, and she having experienced the real ugly side of racism, right, in the mountains of Wilkes County, and knowing that I really wanted to make them proud, and then being in that moment still asking myself, gosh, I hope they're proud of me. I wonder if they're proud of me. You know, so that was part of it. And then there was, okay, now it's time to get to work, because we can be the first at a lot of things. You know, we can be the first, you know, African American female and to occupy a position. We can be the first this and the only that. And but if you're not doing anything with that tremendous honor and tremendous platform you're given, it really doesn't mean a lot. I think, you know, when you are tasked with this, when someone says that you're a trailblazer, which, you know, still, I get it and I understand. It's hard for me to categorize myself in that way, but I think you do owe it to those that came before you and those giants whose shoulders that you stand upon, to really carry forth that legacy and that torch, and add more grace to that platform.
And I mean, that's a great answer. And before we get into some of the incidents of the last few weeks, what, real high level, what are some of the greatest achievements you, first of all, we congratulate the police department for getting national accreditation. And we want to thank all the officers of the Morrisville Police Department. They're outstanding. Our department is fantastic. I would be here for a very long time. I know most of them, but I'd be Eric Pruddy. We sometimes run together, and
Yes.
so many of the great ones. But what are some of the greatest achievements right now, if you look at 4 years back, that just come to mind of the things that we've been able to do?
So you're right. I have a tremendous staff. The men and women that make up this great agency, I could literally talk about them all day. And, you know, they have been able to achieve so much. You know, I just kind of put the thoughts out there, and they really help me. They keep me centered and balanced and focused on what it is that we're trying to do. We've been able to secure body worn cameras with the help, obviously, of town council being so engaged and very supportive, and recognizing the importance of having body worn cameras, so that we have body worn cameras. Our officers have those now. You know, all the way back to bringing on another canine officer, and being able to expand our ranks with adding positions for lieutenants, right? To really build this culture of trust and legitimacy that we're trying to work towards. And then you mentioned it, the accreditation. So we have a fantastic support services analyst who is our accreditation manager, and she really brought us home on that one. You know, it is an honor to be an accredited agency, and you know, we are not done with that work. You know, we want to reach the gold standard accreditation, which is not an easy task, for sure, but you know, there are some things that we're looking forward to in the future. We've started, you know, the community initiative. So there have been, you know, obviously National Night Out and Cocoa with a Cop, and which is big, you know, every December. Coffee with a Cop, Watch for Me and See. These are initiatives and programs that my staff really has has really developed and have looked at what other agencies are doing and have taken that torch and gone with it. I'm just kind of the person that talks about it, but they've done the work. They've done the work. So we're very excited, about the things that we have done and the things that we are going to continue to do. I mean, we have managed to write a very robust recruiting and retention policy, career development, succession, and that was a collaborative effort with our HR director and also our town manager, Paige. So that was a group
Yes.
effort. So
And we want to thank town manager Paige. She does a great job. Hopefully she's
yes.
listening to this, but she's a great manager. Well, we're going to come back and ask some questions about Morrisville, but thank you for that. So folks, we got a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to have time to get all your questions in. So let's talk a little bit about the whole idea of racial healing, and let's go back to the George Floyd incident. What came across your mind when you saw that? You're also a mother of Black children, a woman, a police chief. Walk us through the emotion of what you saw. And then there's been so many of these incidents around the US in police departments. So just, what is your perspective on this? Why is it happening? And what can we do as a community to get through this together?
So if, I still can't fully capture and express my emotions from the first time that I saw Mr. Floyd and saw him being murdered on that street. I can tell you as a mother, it shook me to my core to know, and even as the daughter of Black parents. I mean, my father and my mother, the images are interchangeable. So I can see, there is this larger than life Black man that's on the pavement, on the ground, and his life is just slowly leaving him. To hear him call out for his mother, and you've heard me talk about this, it shook me. I remember crying and just being sick. I mean, I physically was sick. And then wondering, how could any do that? And how could you stand by and watch that? And how could you ignore the cries, the pleading, someone pleading for their life? I mean, I just, what kind of monster and subhuman are you to do that to another human being? And I realized that we still have a very long way to go. I thought that we had come a long way, but as long as incidents like that are still occurring, the blatant disregard for his life, he didn't matter in that moment. He didn't matter. And that's heartbreaking to me, that any person could look at another person and say that you don't matter is heartbreaking to me. And so I want justice. I want justice as a mother, as a daughter. I want justice because my babies will grow. My son will grow up and he will be a man one day. And I don't want him to be George Floyd.
Now, for those listening, and there's been so many others. I think
Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. Say his
Rashard
name.
Brooks. Rashard Brooks. I mean,
Rashard Brooks.
And so what is it that, and we're going to get to questions in a few minutes, but for those listening, and I'm getting some questions, that we have standards in Morrisville's police department around the region where chokeholds are not allowed, strangleholds aren't allowed. Talk a little bit about the bias training that our police officers go through. I just want those listening to know that there's very high standards that I've gone to the swearing in of the police officers. I get emotional when I see how hard these young officers coming with their families, the amount of time it's taken to interview. So how does this happen? How does one person like that get into a police department and And then where do we feel like the hate is coming from? Because it's just, you know.
You've asked a million dollar question. Here's what I'll say is, yes, there are standards. We do have annual training, and the state of North Carolina, as a part of that training curriculum, we do have training on diversity, training on, inclusion and bias. We have that training, right? The difference is that organizations and leaders of organizations must take it a step further, right? You can't just check a box. You have to put more skin in the game, so to speak. So that's we had some training with True Pettigrew,
Right, I was
who's
about to ask, yeah.
probably, I myself, I'm willing to admit my bias in that area, that True is probably one of the best cultural diversity and inclusion, and so much more trainers in this country.
And he's bringing, he has the barbershop rap sessions, and I would encourage them.
The barbershop rap sessions.
And it's about having a conversation, a community conversation, this whole day of building bridges. So bringing different people from different walks of life, ethnic groups, and having conversations that we might not be having in a normal setting, because we just go through the day, go do our thing, and then we all come back and do it again. This is actually putting different people together to have a conversation. That might be part of the problem, is that we're not communicating. Right?
Yeah, but we don't, and unfortunately, there's the outrage, and then it almost just kind of it subsides, right? So we have to do a couple things. So we have to continue to be outraged, but in a manner that we're turning it into being very reformative in our actions, right? We have to now, okay, we've done this and we've done that. Now let's see what actionable steps we can take, right? And I think that's true for anybody, whether you are in a police agency or you are in a private corporate company, right? I think there are actionable steps that we can all take. Another part to that is learning that the reform must also come from legislators. It must also come from our overall judicial system. One thing I will tell you, and I don't know if you've seen it, but if you haven't, you must see it. It's called the 13th, and it's a documentary. It's actually YouTube has made it available. Netflix has made it available on YouTube. It's a documentary giving the history of policing, the history of law enforcement in this country, but also the history of how our basic laws have been created in a manner that it really does. It feeds into oppression. It feeds into this idea and fact that we have innocent people in prison. The amount of people of color, of Black men in prison, is astronomical. I mean, there's a whole problem, whether it's with our laws, so it's the contact with law enforcement, it's going through that justice system, and it's straight to that pipeline to prison, and people throw away the key, and then even after, it's not allowing people to now that you've paid your price to society, you've paid your debt to society, you're not allowed to vote, there's things you're not allowed to do, so you're not even allowed those basic human rights that we are all endowed with the exception of a convicted felon. So this documentary is extraordinary. It's genius. It's something that we are making it available for our staff here to watch, but we are also looking at bringing more training. And it's really just sit down and having a conversation with a facilitator type training. It's being more purposeful in our outreach and our engagement. It's going where people are, not expecting them to come to us. So there's so many more things that every agency can do, but really as a whole, there are many things that we can do as a society too.
Okay, I mean, and you mentioned before we get it, I'm going to ask a few questions that have just come in, but so, you talked about bias training, and we go through a lot of training in the police department. We're not allowed to have chokeholds and strength, if you were to see this behavior, reprimand your officers. Also, if another officer saw something like that happen,
Yeah.
as a chief of police, your expectation would be that you would expect those officers, and I'm not talking about Morrisville in general, just any police department, that they would go in and stop anything that happened.
Yeah, so we've
Okay.
always had a measure of accountability and a duty to report and intervene embedded within our policies. However, one thing I always say is that if you don't learn anything from tragedy, from a tragic situation, if you don't pull some sort of lesson from it, then you are making that tragic situation even worse, right? And so what we learned with Mr. Floyd's murder was that you had a group of officers that weren't holding each other accountable, right? This officer who had 18, violations, allegations, whatever, he was never held accountable for his actions. And so we learn a lot about accountability. So what we did learn was that those need to be standalone policies. It needs to be very clear, the expectation that you have a duty to intervene and you have a duty to report. And, that has to be, and so we created a separate policy for that because it is extremely important that our officers know that it's okay to report, it's their duty to report, and it's their duty to intervene, because really if that behavior continues on, they will become culpable and responsible for what happens down the road because they did not say anything.
Okay, and I'm going to come back and ask you a few more questions, but I'm going to ask some of the audience's questions. But Jane Allspaw Rabin says hello from Winston-Salem.
Hi.
A lot of people are chiming in. I'm having to take notes, and I've never had this many people send me messages. You're so loved, Chief.
Oh.
I wish I had that problem. So Ben Holiday, who's a member of the Latter-day Saints Church and lives in Breckenridge, has asked a question about how can we as citizens celebrate those in uniform who exemplify the good in our community? We rightfully have called out police who need to be removed, but what are the ways that we can call out those in uniform? And I was going to ask that question too, who are helping to heal and unify our community, medicated officers. What can we do to let them know we're grateful and that they're appreciated?
I love that. So we, what I say is that if you see an officer doing a good deed, go on our website and fill out a commendation. If you see, so we've gotten several either private messages or being tagged in something where our, people that are in contact with Morrisville Police Department officers are and have really gracious interactions with our officers. They are being very they are posting and saying, listen, they are doing great. This is what they're doing. So, while we welcome hearing about officers, if it is an officer that's doing something in your opinion is not acting, to the standard that he or she should act, we want to know about it. But then we also want to measure that equally with hearing about the really great things that these officers are doing, because listen, they need it now. And it really is just as simple as writing a letter or sending something through our commendation system, because every one of those that we receive, all of our officers are receiving them so that they know that they are loved. And often a simple just thank you, for your service and thank you for doing what you do. Wow, that goes on. I can personally tell you that goes a long way, because these men and women really need to hear that right now. They are really,
so much on the negative. We don't think of all those officers that are just sacrificing so much, doing so much. So you're listening today and you're a police officer in Morrisville, Carrie, and we didn't talk about, and we work with Carrie. We could spend an hour talking about that, but we do work with Carrie in Apex, and we're going to be bringing, we had Mayor Gilbert on here who was a captain of police department. So we
Yes.
work with different jurisdictions, right? I mean, one question that just James Sawyer had a question about civilian review boards. What is your opinion about civilian review boards?
Jim Sawyer is my hero. Hey, Jim, first of all. So
He's my hero too.
he is awesome. I mean, you want to talk about action. So I am in favor of review boards. One of the things that I love when I came here to Morrisville is the amount of engagement that our community has with town activities, things, whether it's our public, performance measures committee, our planning and zoning board, and all the way down to our public safety advisory committee. So we currently have a committee here that literally can facilitate that role. And so that tonight, we do have a public meeting scheduled tonight that is obviously going to be on Teams, and that I encourage everyone to take a listen at, because we are going to have some conversations about the role that Public Safety Advisory Committee can really take as we move forward into identifying some key areas and key actionable steps, whether it's with a separate committee or really putting that onus on Public Safety Advisory Committee. And I will add, when we talk about policies and policy review, we will be, which I'm really, really super excited about, because this has been a labor of love. We will be publishing our policies on our webpage tomorrow morning. So super, super excited about having that. So
that'll be on the Town of Morrisville webpage.
That'll be on the police department's webpage. Yes, okay. Correct.
All right, I'm sending a newsletter out tomorrow. I'll make sure I do that. Another question that came in, they're really coming in here. And another one, Robin Wade Russell says, I love Morrisville. Thank you for all your hard work. And so many people are just so grateful for you being just such a great police chief.
Thank you.
James Sawyer says, we love you back, Patrice Andrews. What are the limits? We have a few more minutes, folks. We're going to keep asking questions. I have a few more of mine I'm going to ask as a moderator. What are the limits of what a chief can do to reform racial injustice in policing? In other words, what actions would need to be done at the city council, county commission? I think you've already addressed this. So, I mean, in other words, we can do actions at the council, the commissioner, state legislatures. What can you do as a chief of police, as the head person? Right? You can just set the tone, have policies, right?
Yeah. Okay. So and that's an excellent question. We can set policies here, right? So our general orders, kind of our policies, we will review our policy. So we do a regular review as a part of our accreditation. We do a regular review in between our actual assessments. And so what we look for is, do these policies, are they meeting legal standard? So has there been case law that's come out that we need to do some changing? And that's something that, our ability to create policy as well as to assess and change policy. That's something that is well within my duties and responsibilities and my control. So as far as with legislation, we are very active. International Associations of Chiefs of Police and North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police, as really going and speaking to legislatures. Any opportunity that I have personally to bend the ear of a lawmaker, I am there. I do it because that's my role. That's my responsibility. If I want changes, to be that squeaky wheel. So as long as I can always, as long as I use my platform, I will do that. And I'm willing to do that. Engaging with our council members, I will tell you and it's not because Councilmember Rao is facilitating this. Our council members have been very involved and very open to having these discussions about how do we change laws, and how do we promote reform, and how do we make this happen? And so we've had these discussions, and we'll continue to have these conversations as we move forward and taking some positive steps. So
What is being, a couple more questions. We still have till 4 o'clock or a little bit before, so this is going great. What are we doing for the psychological the psychological well-being of police officers in such a stressful time? Are there programs that we have?
yeah.
Investments that council has to make?
No. So we thankfully, so obviously the town has an EAP, and that's open to all of our town employees, the employee assisted program. We through IACP, there are some outlets there. Captain Eric Preddy has started a great podcast, and he is a thinker. He has already come up with some curriculum that we're doing to train on duty, to intervene, and accountability. I mean, curriculum to train on that, which is craziness, using simulations and things like that. But he has started a podcast. We do have someone on staff who is able to who is able to counsel our officers. But really, we also do check in with them and making sure that we're asking the very genuine questions of, what can we do for you today? What can I do for you today? How is your family? Let's talk. And being able to see when our officers are just not having a good day. Another way that, and this goes to detecting issues, is if you have an officer that's doing really well and then all of a sudden starts missing time out of work, starts, incurring some complaints, there's something that has happened there. And so there's no one way that we address mental health, but we're very proactive in making sure that our officers have what they need, and that they know it's okay to say, I just need a moment. I'm not feeling good about this. I need some help, right? Making it
Yes.
okay to say, I am not okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, well, we appreciate that. Carol Lewis wanted just you to know the presence of the Morrisville Police Department, how grateful she was at the Black Lives Matter March. And that was a magnificent event. So we want to thank Jim Sawyer, Tina Sawyer, and all the organizers, along with all my colleagues in the council who attended. The energy of the community was amazing. My daughter and I had a very friendly interaction with our cops and thanked them for the presence. They were on bikes, smiling, waving, and they made everyone feel safe and positive. And Council Mayor Pro Tem Johnson mentioned that too in our last meeting. She felt like there was a really family-oriented kind of folks together, and I agree with her on that. One question that came in, this person wanted to know, we've heard a lot about our rights as citizens and making sure that all are treated equitably. How do we share with our citizens our corollary duties and obligations as citizens? The most timely duties would be obeying the law, participating in the census, voting in the upcoming elections. As we emerge from lockdown, I hope that we can also be more involved and informed by serving the community, embracing diversity, and celebrating what makes our community, state, and country great. So do you have any thoughts on that? Powerful statement, but a lot there.
Yeah.
But
well, but such great points there, because we are so, right now, we have just these restrictions as far as, gatherings and things like that. It's very hard for us to be, to really be out there and creating change and action that really how we envision it to be, right? It's very hard to do that. However, what we've discovered is that there's a whole different world of virtual, right? Where you can still have these conversations, and you can have more people in the conversations. And I think that that's, embracing that way of getting the message out is tremendous. It is tremendous. So I would say is really invite others, you don't have to be, a council member or a police chief or or, but you can, you can invite others into a discussion by simply, posting on, your HOA's webpage or however, and saying, let's have a conversation, focused around reform, or let's talk about, the census, let's talk about this, and then bring in an expert to do that. And you can use the platform that we're using now to be able to reach many more people, and to really capture the message even after the discussion is really done. I think we're in COVID is a stressful time, but I think we can also seize this moment to use, technology to reach so many more people. And so that's one of the things that I pledge to you, is that, you'll be seeing more of that from the police department, because this is the easiest tool to use to get the message out there.
And you've been using Facebook Live. You and I tend to use it a lot more, but even as a head of a department, you're using it to engage the community policing. And also the point I like in this question of the diversity, we live in one of the most diverse communities, inclusive communities in the state. Many people from South Asia, India. Councilmember Garamella, who has a unique connection, and he's one of my heroes because they always say I was the first Indian American, but that's actually wrong because I grew up in the hills of West Virginia, but he grew up in Mumbai. And I'm just so amazed with what a great leader he is. But the thing is, he often, he speaks 4 different languages, and when he's out there, he gets concerned sometimes when someone from that community is talking to police officers, not usually viewed as a good thing. So, having these kinds of dialogues, making it fun, and you do a great Indian dance. I mean, I can't believe I forgot to ask that on the interview.
Listen, that's
on the carriage stage. You made me and Mayor Colley look. He was actually better than me. I was the worst. But you're a dancer. You do Indian dance.
It's fun. I try.
You're good. You're good. You really are.
What I'll say is that, I am so happy and so proud of our department because, Ranjith Fernando he is our first, you talk about trailblazers and me being the first African American.
Yeah, he's the first Sri Lankan. Right?
Yes.
Sri Lankan.
Yeah. And so we're going to be utilizing him to really talk to our community, right? And talk about some of these things that really matters the most to the community. And I think that's important. We have several officers that are Spanish speaking. I think it's just important to now tap into the resources that we have and put the message out there.
Right, and we have a lot of people from the Nepalese community today.
Yes.
I want to thank them as well. A huge, wonderful community. We celebrate Nepal Day. I want to thank them for joining this. A couple more questions. This may be a record. I've never had this many questions come on Facebook.
Councilmember Al, make sure you please if you will capture those questions, and I think whatever we don't get to, so that if there's some that needs a response, I can respond back and
I will
do that, so you can, however you need to get that out there.
We'll have my tech crew get on that. Let's make sure we cut the pace. What realistic reform, tool, program, or law would you like to have so that you don't have? What realistic reform, tool, program, or law would like to have that you currently don't have that would make your role in changing the issue we're talking about easier? Maybe you've already spoken about that. I guess it's a combination, right?
Yeah, realistic reform. I tell you, I think that some of these outdated laws that's on the books, just as we go back and review and assess our policies, I think our laws should be assessed. Not when they're coming up because of something that has happened, but there should be a constant process of that. There are so many laws now that are outdated and that were made born from oppressive, keeping people oppressed. And if there would be one thing that I could just say to wish for, that would be a great start. I wish there were more, I wish there were more outlets for kids in our community that are dealing with trauma. Trauma comes in so many shapes and forms, right? Trauma of being in an accident, trauma, of watching the video of Mr. Floyd's murder, that trauma. And so what I know that we will start to see is people that are now going to really start manifesting, and through mental health. There's things that are going to happen as a result of some of the things that we've seen on TV night after night after night. Things that people have been through while we've been on, our safer at home, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, just, it's, yeah, mental anxiety. Couple
Yeah.
more, Ron Saniel, thank you, Uncle Ron. He says, you're a great role model. I agree. Thank you for being here with us. Mask requirement. The governor just issued, effective tomorrow at 5 p.m., a mandatory mask requirement. For those of you, the exceptions are under 11 years old, physical issues, but businesses and retail now will be basically required to enforce masks. And what the governor said is that that they cannot be given any kind of fines, but they could, if they just, I guess businesses could be fined, but if someone refuses to wear a mask, they could violate trespass laws. So the question is, how are our departments going to enforce this? Is it just going to be, we're going to have to see how people see, and we're talking about this issue in Morrisville, so we're looking at what kind of policies and resolutions.
Well, so I will tell you this. When we started implementing, so when Governor Cooper initially, we had the executive order at the very onset of COVID, which was created this, the stay-at-home order, and then the town of Morrisville adopted a resolution that aligned with Wake County, and then the governor's order. We had very little problems with residents of a town, going against that order or not wanting to comply or anything like that. And oftentimes the calls that we received, the COVID compliance calls that we received were, we would respond and simply educate. And what we found was, that people said, oh, okay, not a problem, no problem at all. And so what we're hoping is that that same spirit continues, understanding that, our businesses, they are, that's what the executive order says, is that they will have to require their employees and those coming to their business to wear masks. Now, I can tell you that, if there is someone that comes to the business and does not want to put on a mask and does not want to leave, so from the police department standpoint, we would most likely be called, and we do not want to set upon issuing people criminal trespass citations. We don't want to have to take anyone we don't want it to get to that point.
So just
and
cooperate, look at the data.
It's just let's just say, we are going to educate and remind, people of the importance of, if you don't want to shop here, you don't have a mask, you don't want to wear a mask, you can't shop here. It's the store's purview to ask you to leave, but and to comply, because the last thing we want to do is issue a citation for trespassing. It really is. And most of the time we've had one or two calls like that. And most of the time people are willing to say, you know what, it's not a problem. I'll either go get my mask, because they've had a mask with them the entire time, or they leave. And I think we need to just we are in this together. I mean, my officers, we are changing the way we how we engage now with the public even more, as far as wearing our mask and things like that. So we are all having to change, and whether you feel like you should or not, this is kind of the order. But we are not out here wanting to cite people and arrest people for violating an order. We simply what we would like is it to be an educational process, that at the end of the day, we both walk away, you knowing more about the process, and then we feeling better because we were just simply able to educate and resolve.
Okay. We have 10 more minutes. We're going to go to 3:58. I've never done that before because we
Okay,
just want to give, and I'm going to
totally
cut and
fine.
paste the questions. And what advice would you give to minorities who still fear the police?
Call me.
Okay,
You know,
fair enough.
I would say that, you know, and what I tell my officers, what I tell anyone is that everyone has experiences. Everyone has had experiences. And so we can't be dismissive of that. But what we have to do is as we go forth in our message and in our outreach, we have to be aware of that, and we have to tailor our outreach, you know, because it's a job to meet you where you are. In the words of True Pettigrew, it's my job to meet you where you are
Yes.
and help answer those questions, and do what I can, and my officers doing what they can, to hopefully get you to the point where there isn't going to be that fear, right?
Yeah.
But I know that it won't happen overnight. We have to do the work. We want you to meet us halfway, though. So you've got to be willing to meet us halfway. But you know, if and I say this to everyone, you know, in our community, if there is ever a time you want my officers to come talk, or you want me to come and be present, and let's really have this discussion about our relationship with the community in the historic context of law enforcement, which, you know, it's ugly. You know, that's where it starts. Is
Well,
that
I mean, yeah,
discussion? So,
an
but
open conversation and having
and
more of these communities.
yeah, and we are committed to treating everyone with fairness, with you know, humanely, you know, with empathy. We are committed to being guardians, right? Because that's our job. Is we're guardians. We're not gonna we're not here to be warriors. We're here to be guardians.
Okay, that's so good. And one story before we close out today. They just wanted, you know, Ben Holiday wanted to say that several months ago, he stopped during a rainstorm to assist a motorist with a flat tire. And within 5 minutes, an officer showed up and made sure we were safe and jumped in and helped. And it was soaking wet, grease stained uniform. And, you know, he went to work the next day. And it just is an example of such the sacrifices and the good deeds that these police officers do all the time. And so I think it's important. And, you know, there's peaceful protests, which is good. But in Raleigh, there was just a lot of violence and looting and stuff. So you would just advise, try to keep it peaceful, correct? What happened to Raleigh, and that was hard for Chief Tech Brown. Who's
Yeah,
also
I
your
mean,
friend.
I will tell you, my heart, I've been on those lines. I mean, my heart goes out to, you know, Chief Tech Brown and her officers that were on that line night after night after night. The officers that were injured. I also too would say that, you know, my I do think about those that were, you know, that were peacefully protesting. I think about them, and my heart goes out to them too, because you have to remember, I am a Black woman that is also a police chief or police officer. And so I can relate to the outrage. I can relate to the want to see reform and change, and I want it now. Believe me, I can relate to it. But we have to work together in this, and opposing each other really doesn't help. And guess what? And those bad officers out there, they're being given another day to continue to do whatever it is that they feel like they can do, because we are doing this with each other when we should be making sure that we have some reform, both with the police department and also these laws. And I, you know, I would also have everybody to remember the same, how you're feeling right now, and you want to act and call to action. I'm hoping that you all continue that same feeling in November.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay engaged, stay voting,
Stay
and
engaged. It should
stay
be record
engaged.
numbers in November.
We're
Stay
going to
engaged.
be, yeah, stay engaged. And I'll end with this. I always end with the closing message. And first of all, we want to thank you, Chief Andrews, for being such a great leader in our community. You've been a great influence on me. I want to thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that being said, I just wanted to say that, this next week, we celebrate July 4th. And it'll be the first time in a long time where we don't have the fireworks, the famous pancake breakfast. Of course, I think that our fire department makes the best pancakes in the state of North Carolina.
True story.
But yeah, they're unbelievable. And but in the silence or with our families, what I want people to remember is just those words. I ran about 8 miles this morning, and I said the words of the Declaration of Independence to myself. We are endowed with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that we are all created equal. It doesn't matter where we come from, what our religion is, what we look like. What do those words mean? And we have a choice of how those words are perceived and how we live through our action. And I remember just 2 weeks ago, I played at the end of an event with True Pettigrew and former Cary Police Chief Tony Godwin, RFK's speech from 52 years ago. And there were some youth leaders on there, and tears were pouring down their eyes as they heard the words of RFK, who basically said, we have a choice. We can be divided, full of hatred and bigotry. I understand that one of your leaders died. My brother too was killed, but he also was killed by a white man. And we have to make a choice of where we want to be. And these kids, they had tears in their eyes because they couldn't believe that this was a man who lived just like Dr. King among us, who was fighting for the change. And maybe the tears were also a sadness that 52 years after RFK's passing and after MLK, that we're still having these debates.
Still having.
Yeah. So that's my final message. On this July 4th, we thank the police officers, the military soldiers who have given their life so this country can long endure, and the police and the first responders. But we also remember that we have a choice. And that's the silver lining in the clouds, is that we made a choice last week in Morrisville when we had Black Lives Matter March.
Yeah.
And we can make a choice today if you have a concern to call our police chief. And we as elected officials have a choice. Yeah. And citizens have a choice, because silence and just saying it's a problem that's going to go away. There's no vaccine for this. There's no immediate cure. And as I said when I spoke the other day, we all want a quick cure. We want a drug to take away the pain now. We want a vaccine to kill COVID-19. We want a software upgrade now. I want the latest iPhone. But, we have to also understand that these things take time, but being silent isn't going to do it. So that's my message. I went a little bit over my time, but I wanted to thank you all. Wish everyone a happy July 4th next week. And remember, tonight, Public Safety Advisory Committee is meeting at 6 o'clock. You can get that on Facebook Live. And the Morrisville Chamber is hosting a business forum if you're a business and you want to share your ideas. A lot of things going on. We have gone well over our time. I'm going to let you get back to the great job you do. I want to thank Radio Murchie for allowing us to host this, and all this across Morrisville and the region and state of North Carolina who attended this very special town meeting with Patrice Andrews, our police chief.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, folks. We'll be back next week for another special edition. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.